full of some very interesting insights and thoughts. Chris is also the author of the book Superhuman Innovation, which is essentially a book around transforming businesses through artificial intelligence. So please join me in welcoming Chris onto stage.
Thank you, Chris. By show of hands, how many have you used AI in the past 6 months for a project? Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so the goal is this time next year, 100% of you will have both hands up in the air. So greetings from the future of experiences, immersive experiences. So, 6 months away from 2020, right? We kind of hold this as this symbolic notion of the future. So in reality, the future is here within 6 months. So it's quite exciting. We have conversations about bots. Poly AI is a great example that takes bots to the next level in terms of service design. We have conversations about IoT, not only connecting the world, but creating harmony. We have conversations about robots. Sophia is a great example of how she's going to elevate humanities. Quite exciting opportunities. Every 10 to 15 years, humanity creates and is given back to humanity a new technology. If we go back to the 90s, we had the internet, more specifically the desktop publishing revolution, where we had now this ability to democratize content creation. Fast forward a few years to the 2000s, we then had the mobile revolution, where we needed a device to access all of this great content. Fast forward a few more years to the era of the cloud. Now, because of all of that digital exhaust from the mobiles, we needed a place to house all of that data. And herein lies the opportunity for the next revolution. Artificial intelligence can now be easily accessed today and going forward. And we can break down AI, and we had some great conversations yesterday, presentations on what exactly is AI, what is it not. Essentially, there's AI, there's machine learning, and deep learning, and would be happy to geek out with you on any of those aspects, but that's really not the focus of this conversation. It is ultimately about how we can leverage AI. And if you look across the cultural conversation right now, it is everywhere from AlphaGo. AlphaGo was a great experiment of how AI went against the grandmaster in terms of the game Go. And urban legend, rumor has it, there's more moves in the game Go than stars in the sky, and still the system was able to beat the human. But what doesn't get talked about as much is that there were subsequent experiments where what happens when you put human plus machine, and those experiments unanimously always found that human plus machine is stronger than either alone. We have movies about AI, not only about AI, but the trailers were generated by AI, quite kind of meta thought. Sophia, quite exciting opportunity to meet Sophia and the kind of possibilities around her. Autonomous cars, who knows, in a couple years, Cyprus might be all autonomous cars, very exciting. Westworld, maybe a darker view on AI. We have some great philosophical discussions on the ethical, security, and privacy issues around AI as well. You know, if you look at your phone, if you just pull that out, that is more powerful than the computational power we had that sent the first human to the moon, which was quite interesting. And many of those aspects are generated by artificial intelligence. We have the autonomous cars. Just take a moment, for example, and consider what has to be generated and understood in microseconds to keep the people in the car safe. Really kind of mind-boggling aspect. But my favorite is the Roomba, and this is my puppy's favorite as well. So this kind of can map out your living space and then kind of clean. So I love it, my puppy loves it, so life is good because of AI. But the more things seem to change in actuality, the more they stay the same. At the end of the day, it's still about the customer, it's still about the human. They want to be known and respected. They want to be spoken in one voice. They want transparency at every turn. They want to be delighted. They want to be integrated, very ambient use of technology. They want meaningful moments, and they want compelling experiences. Ultimately, we're now moving into the experience economy. To take a broad view of AI, there's essentially three schools of thought. The first one you might have heard of, singularity, and this is driven by the notion at some point human plus machine will become one. Kind of out there idea, much argument, much debate if that will ever happen. Some of the folks in this school of thought are taking upwards of 140 vitamins per day so they can stay alive until that technology is available, and then they're supposedly going to upload their brains to that system. Interesting notion. We're not going to talk about that today, though. Armageddon, right? We've probably seen and heard different aspects of Armageddon. Either the humanoids are going to come and take over the world, or on a more personal level, the AI systems are going to take away our jobs. In reality, and would be happy to have a beer or a wine with you and talk about kind of the philosophical aspects of that. But what we are going to focus about today is how AI, coupled with human creativity and inventiveness, is going to up-level humanity, and we call that enhanced creativity. So I like to take the term artificial intelligence, AI, and flip it so it's IA. And what we mean by that is it's an intelligent assistant. And that got me thinking about my pet pigeon. Of course, it got me thinking about my pet pigeon, Roxanne. So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, kind of this little town in the middle of the United States. It's a little cold, so I think we have too much time on our hands. So I had, of all things, a pet pigeon, and her name was Roxanne. But make no mistake about it, Roxanne was a champion. She was a champion racing pigeon. And yes, there is a club, there is kind of this big following, cult following of pigeons, racing pigeons. So every summer, Roxanne would be taken out about 200 or 500 miles, and she would be released. And if you've never seen the release of a racing pigeon, I urge you all. It's like the Kentucky Derby of these thoroughbreds kind of jumping out of their cages, flying home. Really a sight to see. And these are great kind of uncelebrated heroes of the animal world. They can fly up to 95 miles per hour. They can find their way home from 200 to 500 kilometers away. So they're really, I think, fascinating. So I urge you, second kind of theme throughout today, next time you see a pigeon, please don't kick it out of your way. Think of Roxanne. So if you look at Roxanne, there's this little white cluster on her beak. And the theory is that it's high in density of iron, and it creates this internal GPS system so she can find her way home. So you might be asking, well, she's a beautiful pigeon, but why in the world are we talking about a pigeon at a kind of technology conference? Well, we have to go back even more, hundreds of years more, to the first Olympics. And at the first Olympics, they had runners that would not only be in the races, but runners that would deliver the messages back to the local villages. And what they were finding was the runners were actually dying of heat exhaustion. So humanity at that time had to tap into an intelligent assistant, in this case, Roxanne, or the messaging pigeon. And much like the pigeon, much like that intelligent assistant, we are now have the ability to tap into our intelligent assistant, that of AI, going forward for advancement of humanity and businesses. You know, there's a lot of talk about AI right now, but in reality, it's been around for many, many years, since the 1950s. That's when a number of scientists came together and they said, let's try to recreate the human mind. What they found was, we can't even define what intelligence is, what emotion is, what is consciousness. But out of that came a series of burst or bust cycles. The first one in 1966, they said, okay, let's take Russian text and try to translate it. It spit out some nice translation, but when they did the reverse translation, they found out that all the variables of the human language just were not achievable. So that was kind of the first AI winter, as they call it. The second one in 1970, they called it the micro worlds, where they said, okay, let's take all the variables out, try to create very kind of specific, rigid experiments. Worked well, but it was so small, so time consuming, it just wasn't scalable. Then in the 1980s, that's when they had the expert systems. They said, let's tap into experts like yourselves, try to decodify your knowledge base and pump it into a system. Interesting thought, but it was so time consuming, so expensive, the third big AI winter. And we kind of thought within the scientific community, that was it for AI. But in 2012, that's where we had this really, I think, exciting intersection of computational power, this excess of data, and we had a new kind of, some new techniques called deep learning. And fast forward to today, now all the big tech companies, all the startups are going all in on AI. So quite exciting that AI, machine learning, deep learning are not only going to transform what we create, but how we create. Here's some interesting stats. 85% of folks believe AI will allow them to gain competitive advantage. 3 out of 4 executives believe AI will give their companies new revenue streams. And then here comes the big one. I think if I view with anything today, by 2020, businesses will take $1.2 trillion from businesses that aren't using AI. So I urge you all to start getting out there and using AI, experimenting it, because it's a huge competitive advantage. So with that in mind, we kind of developed this framework to think about, conceptualize how and where to leverage AI. We're calling it the 4 E's of enhanced creativity. The first one is efficiency. Find an opportunity where you can create a processy, a product that is more efficient by leveraging AI. The next one is effectiveness. How can I make it more meaningful using AI? The third one, empowerment. We're hearing quite often from customers around the world that AI is now giving empowerment to the workforce. We are now being asked to do more, faster, often with less resources. And that's where this new tool of AI is creating kind of this emotional empowerment. And then lastly, experimentation. This is, can be similar to the early days of the internet, where the biggest winners were the ones who just got out there and started experimenting with AI. So at Adobe, this is how we're thinking about AI in twofold, a two-pronged approach. It's embedded into many of our products, as well as we have open APIs that many of you can tap into to kind of accelerate your growth as well.
Explosions.
We really are living at quite a profound time where the limits of AI are truly just our own human imagination. Just to reinforce how deep we're going with AI, we put 170 technical papers just last year alone about AI, 130 patents. You know, maybe 5 is a big year for patents, 130 on AI, so we're going all in, and then 59 technologies across all of our products. Essentially, we break it down into 3 components, and this is a way, you know, you can think about how you can apply AI within your own business or within your own skill set. Essentially, the first way is creative intelligence. How can I create something more intelligently? The second one is experience intelligence. How can I distribute, measure, and optimize it more intelligently with AI? And then the third one is how can I understand content more efficiently and effectively with artificial intelligence? So again, we break it out into 2 approaches. One, it's integrated into all of our products. And then second, we have some services. Quick glance at how it's embedded into our products. We have a product, for example, Adobe Stock, 150 million visual assets that can be accessed. But something that's seemingly as straightforward as a photograph can now be easily amplified when you embed AI into it. In this sense, we have tagging ability where you can have a deeper understanding of how it may resonate with your audience. Another one, the beloved Photoshop, right? We've all either heard of it or used it. Now Photoshop can understand individual and a group use of the application and make suggestive predictions and almost be a muse in the content creation aspect. So I think quite exciting conceptually how AI can be that intelligent assistant that can be a muse to be very suggestive and predictive in your work. And then last, it can help you decide. It can give you valuable insight in how to make decisions on a business level and on a personal level. So let's take a look at a quick glance at some services. These are all accessible for you, so if you need to kind of tap into them, please, would love to chat with you. The first one is auto-tagging. So now you can take an image and automate the process of auto-tagging. So if you have an archive of images, you can then automate that script against it to do kind of very visual, basic understanding of what's happening in the image, but you can also understand higher level conceptual aspects that is happening in the image. So we have kind of 2 columns here. What we don't see here is there's a 3rd, 4th, and 5th column that has this broader, deeper understanding. One example is if you see a family on the beach, right? That first column might say mother, father, son, daughter. But if you go farther out in those columns, it can then say they're happy because they're together, because they're on vacation. So it's, again, an example of how AI is having a better understanding of what's happening in the environment. Image quality. So now you can identify the aspects of what's happening in the image, but also the quality of the image. And you can also see the parallel of how that could be applied to documents as well. Auto cropping. So now you can apply parameters or rules on how the system can auto crop and automate the batching of images in this case. Image cutout, one of my favorites. I came up through the ranks of as a creative, and I used to walk home through Times Square in New York, literally feeling like my eyes were bleeding because I had to do all this grunt work of silhouetting out images, and now that can be automated. Body cropping, so now the system can identify what's happening in the image and it can crop it out. Image caption, really urge you all, if you're into social, to use Adobe Spark. It's a free app, can be easily downloaded, and what's interesting there is it makes use of AI to understand where your text should be applied. I think a really interesting application for AI. Text awareness, we have logo detection, we have copy scan. It can be suggestive of what's happening in the image and can help automate some of the text that should be placed in that image. We have Premiere Classifier, face cropping. So now we're seeing this a lot in kind of security aspects and also autonomous cars, where it can identify the facial features and zoom in on that. And then video tag. So now we talked about how you can tag a still image, but now we can multiply that and understand what's happening in video as well.
What's up, everybody? I'm about to shoot and edit my video today with Adobe Premiere Rush.
It makes it look too easy, right? A few years ago, you would have to take a video, download your cartridge. So many nuances happening in there. There was that example of the person missing the dunk, and the system could identify that and help identify where that edit should take place. Pretty cool stuff. So, in wrapping up, essentially we now have these headwinds that we've never experienced before. We're being asked to do more with less resources faster, and that's where artificial intelligence can help up-level us in terms of creating great experiences. Essentially, customers want these great personalized experiences with high quality, high volume, at high speed. And that's where AI can come in, amplify human creativity, human invention. It can help augment and accelerate human creativity. And then lastly, we always have to keep in mind that AI should be used responsibly. What we mean by that is put the customer first, put the human first, make sure their data is secure, use ethical approaches in providing experiences for them. So in wrapping up, expectations for 2030, right? It's always a fun conference kind of task to predict the future. And in reality, nobody can predict the future. The only thing we can accurately predict is the acceleration of change is only going to happen faster. So if AI interests you, I just spent 3 years writing a book about AI, leveraging AIs. It was literally the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my career. You know, with a day job, with 2 small children, it was a tough undertaking. And so staring at that blank screen was quite kind of frightening experience. But when AI came in to the picture to be a co-author, the book is written as a dialogue, a conversation between myself and a conversational AI system. Again, it goes back to that empowerment scenario where AI was at my back. So I urge you all to think of AI as your intelligent assistant. No matter your industry, no matter kind of your startup, AI can help accelerate what you're trying to achieve. So thanks, everyone. For ever increasing AI growth in people-led fields, do you think there are threats with AI if not properly regulated? Without a doubt. You know, quite often though, it's not the technology, it's the human that is the concern. So, you know, technology is not bad nor good, it's usually the intention of the technology. So I think regulation, of course, is a smart thing, but it's also incumbent on us to use it ethically. What is the next tech evolution after AI? I think this is it for the next 10 to 15 years. We are just truly scratching the surface of AI in terms of conversational agents. I think, again, it's going to allow us to amplify ourselves and up-level humanity. Maybe one or two more. What's the hardest decision you've made at work? Ooh, that's a good one. I think the core premise of where and when should I use AI is kind of what's happening in the cultural conversation around AI right now. I think we all understand it's that intelligent assistant. It's not this robot coming for us. Now the big question is, how can I infuse it into my organization, into my team? And so I urge everyone on a twofold approach. Either go after a project that has some kind of familiarity with adopting new technologies, or secondly, you have this untapped data source that you want to kind of overlay AI to extract some insights. Maybe one more. Some people manipulate media, yes, deep fakes, editing tools along with social media to promote alter media as truth. Do you think AI will stop fake news? Exactly. Or will it enhance it? You know, for every time that AI is being used in a negative way, AI can counteract that. So I think that's kind of the balancing effect of artificial intelligence. So thanks, everyone.